Which traffic source is the most important? Should I be prioritizing just one type of traffic? Is it even possible to prioritize just one type of traffic? Is there a kind of traffic that I should be avoiding? Traffic sources are a pretty valuable piece of analytical information, and we get a number of questions about it. So let's dive into it. So the first question, is there a traffic source that is just better than all of the others? The short answer is no. A view is a view, and it represents somebody who's come to your content and is therefore much more likely to come back to your content. The more viewers we can pull in, the more likely we are to have more returning viewers, the more likely we are to have a big channel. If you offered me the choice of having a video with 10 million views or 1 million views, but I can choose exactly where they go, I would choose the 10 million every time. Traffic source is something that I might use to measure how my audience is growing, but if my audience is growing, I'm not super concerned with where it's coming from, with a couple of really big exceptions. Like, this would be a very short, simple video if I could just say, yeah, I don't care about traffic sources, wherever the views come from, so much the better. But while there isn't one single traffic source that's superior to all the others, there are a few traffic sources that are worse than the others. If you have a bunch of paid media spend and most of your views are coming from advertisement, that can be a problem for organic growth. For one, these views obviously don't represent organic traffic. These aren't fans that came back to your channel. You paid for the privilege of putting it in front of them whether they chose it or not. I like to think about these as empty calorie views. Sure, they'll help you put up numbers, but they don't mean anything. You're not more likely to get these people to subscribe or come back over and over again. Because even if the people that you gave advertisements to are then later served one of your videos, unless your targeting is really, really strong, the people who watched those videos previously might not be the ideal audience for you. So generally, they're very unlikely to start clicking on things organically of their own volition. Advertising views can give a boost to your traffic, but it's not a permanent one. This isn't audience growth, it's putting fuel on a fire. It's not sustained audience growth. If we have high viewership from external traffic sources, this is definitely better than advertising, but it can still be kind of tricky, and it's something that we need to pay attention to. If those views are coming from a website of ours, great, that might mean that we have an audience there that we can start to leverage eventually on YouTube. It can mean that we're generating a number of session starts, which is generally helpful. But if those views are coming from a site that we don't control, that viewership can evaporate very quickly. Let's say you have a video that trends in a popular Google search. Your video is going to shoot up massively in this time frame, but it's also very easy to just stop trending in a search term and then that traffic disappears completely. External views are not bad by any stretch of the imagination, but we really want to have a plan to convert them into viewers on YouTube who come back week after week after week in a place that we can control. You don't want viewership to your videos to be entirely at the mercy of somebody that you've never known or met and who very likely does not care about you. If your views are not coming from advertising or external, I'm willing to bet they come from search, suggested, or browse primarily. These are kind of the big typical organic viewership points. Occasionally, if you're very, very small and you're very, very new and you're going to family members and friends and saying, hey, check out this channel that I just started, the majority of your traffic might start to come from channel pages, but this is rare outside of a very narrow set of circumstances. Same thing with like playlists or end screens. Sometimes it happens if you're dealing with a really small channel and a really small sample size. I have not seen it on a channel that has been established for a while. Theoretically possible, very unlikely. Okay, so that leaves us with the big three: browse, search, and suggested. Is there a best one between those two? Kind of, sort of, maybe. Let's talk about it. There's not exactly a best one, but they can mean different things for different channel types. Let's get into what that means. Search traffic tends to be the domain of utility channels. If you have a utility channel, I'm going to expect that your search traffic is very, very high. And if it's not, that's something that we're going to need to address. If the majority of your traffic was coming from browse and suggested, that's technically fine, but I would guess that the place you can grow most is search. If you're a utility information channel and your search traffic is proportionately low, it could be that when people are looking for that information, they're using keywords that you don't, so you're never showing up in that search. You never have a chance to convince them that you have the information they need. And with utility information, it's very hard to create recurring loyal users, because at the end of the day, they came to you for useful information. If the next thing you upload isn't immediately useful to them, they're probably not going to watch it. And yes, if you're wondering, these things do center around audience loyalty, which YouTube has metrics for internally, and they still have not shared with us. We have a great video on that. You should check it out. Suffice it to say, it's very frustrating. Speaking of loyalty, browse views tend to be an okay stand-in for our core audience, at least until we get these loyalty metrics, which who knows when that's going to be. Browse views come from the homepage or from your subscription feed, which means that every browse view had a much higher instance of being somebody's session start or the reason that they came to YouTube. On any video, browse views tend to be the highest traffic source on day one. Your video is at its freshest, your core audience is the most likely to see it on day one because they know you and they make a point to watch your videos. Then as that core audience has mostly watched your videos, browse views tend to taper off. So surely if that's our core audience, that's the most important traffic source, right? Maybe. There's a lot of maybes in this one. It's awesome to have a core audience, but where do we get new viewers? Enter suggested views. After your video's initial push, your video is going to be recommended to people who are very much like the people who watched your video. This might be more of your core audience, or it could be people entirely unrelated. If browse views is a kind of sort of okay approximation of our core audience, then suggested views is a kind of sort of okay approximation of a new and growing audience. And that makes sense because, like, if I haven't seen your content before, my homepage is much more likely to be from channels that I've watched in the past or from my subscription feed. It's not likely to be things that are just completely unrelated, sight unseen. Like, there's only so much space on the homepage. YouTube wants a sure thing because they really want to keep you on the platform, and getting you to watch that first video is a big step. Once you're watching videos, if you start to look into the suggested tab, you're going to see things from a much wider variety of channels. So when a video is doing well in suggested, it tends to mean that it's being put in front of a wider and wider audience. It also tends to be a much more stable viewership that happens over time. Browse views spike and fall with every upload. Suggested stays much steadier. As a result, suggested tends to be the most stable place for high traffic for large channels. Like 9 times out of 10, if a channel is very large, their top traffic source is suggested. And that tends to make sense, right? Like, if you have a very big audience, you're going to have a big core, but you're going to have an even greater population who are casual or new viewers. Again, this is not one-to-one with the concept of casual viewers and new viewers. It's just a close-ish approximation until we have those metrics. And God, I really want those metrics. Notably, suggested as an approximation of new and casual audiences starts to fall apart when we consider the fact that sometimes audiences watch multiple of our videos in a row. So the first one's going to be on the homepage, and then the subsequent ones are going to be in the suggested tab. So sometimes suggested views are the ultra core fans. But at the end of the day, for back of the napkin math, suggested is a good stand-in. So those suggested views are a good indicator of growth, and then some of those people are going to become core fans who watch every new video as it's uploaded. So that sounds like a perfect harmony, right? And it sounds like they should increase together, and a lot of times they do, but not always, and that's where things get tricky. Browse views tend to come on the homepage. On the homepage, thumbnails are larger, so different images can be more enticing on the homepage than they would be in the suggested tab. As well, people tend to be starting their YouTube sessions, which means they can be really intimidated and put off by a super long video. Like, most people don't just pull out their phone at the start of a viewing session and scroll down and go, yeah, I'm good to watch a 90-minute video right now. By contrast, thumbnails in the suggested tab tend to be much smaller, and so little details can get lost, which can have a drastic impact on click-through rate. That said, viewers tend to be more kind of entrenched in their viewing sessions, and they're much more tolerant of longer videos. Not only that, but if we take these as approximations for your core and casual audience, they might actually have different wants. So what does all this mean? How do we use this information? If you're a utility channel with useful information, you're probably looking for search, because that tends to just be where your traffic comes from. If we're an entertainment channel, look at how you're doing in browse and suggested. What are the CTRs like there? What are the average view durations like there? And most importantly, are some videos doing better in one than the other? If you have one kind of video that does really well in browse and you have one kind of video that does really well in suggested, maybe what you're seeing is that your core audience really appreciates this, but your new audience really appreciates this. If we can successfully isolate videos that do well in one or the other, we might be able to get an understanding of what our core audience and our casual audience likes, which can then help us do two really cool things. One, we can try and create new programming that takes the best of what the core audience likes and the best of what our casual audience likes and put them together. Or two, if we can't combine the best of both worlds, this helps us make informed decisions about what we want. Like, our core audience is really important, but if these videos aren't showing growth or new viewership over time, it means that our audience is going to kind of stagnate. If our videos are doing really well in this suggested casual audience, but they don't keep coming back for more, maybe there's a way we can entice them to stick around for a while. Therefore, the right call is going to be up to your channel individually and what you need. And a lot of this will be a lot easier if we have loyalty metrics instead, right? Because then we can say, oh, there's a high instance of new viewership or a high instance of loyalty viewership. When it comes to choosing between a core loyal audience and an expanding new audience, everything has to be taken in balance. Like, if we take browse as a measurement for your core audience and it is the same time every time you upload a video, maybe it's time to experiment, because even if those people are clicking on your video a ton, it's just not turning into growth. But if you have a casual audience that never sticks around, maybe it's time to really tighten up your core identity so that there's a group of people that know what they're getting every single time. It's always going to be a tough choice, but understanding how traffic sources can influence future growth makes it a little bit easier. If you like this video, be sure to leave a like to let us know that you liked it and that you want to see more of it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Little Monster for more videos on audience development every single week. See you next time.